This is Atlas Fallen. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So what are we getting in this sand crawling, sand sliding with a really weird, ultra powerful flying gauntlet? We have two different performance modes. We've got quality mode, which is what you're seeing right now. That's a 4K resolution at 30 FPS. There is also a performance mode, which is 1440p at 60 FPS, the default option, and the one that I would recommend playing on. Both of these are dynamic resolution scaling and have Fidelity FX applied as well. So you kind of will notice that to a degree within the environment as you're going through it. There's HDR support and spatial sound support as well. So we're just kind of showing it off a little bit just so you get an idea of the quality mode, because in this particular situation I do have to restart the game in order for the performance mode to apply. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a look at it when it is, you know, really visually fully offering what it can do. So let's go ahead and let's apply that. So you go to settings, displaying graphics, and then performance mode. Okay, so we got performance on, and then we're going to restart the game and show that off. So yeah, I do think performance mode is really quite the way to go. Either way, the whole world seems to load and handle pretty well in regards to like the fluidity and the performance level. There were a couple places in the open world where there's some hiccups here or there, but for the most part, I don't think you're going to notice any performance problems, quite honestly. So yeah, Deck 13 on this one, and then you'll see the AMD Fidelity FX kind of logo pop up, which is kind of where I got that aspect from it. So this is a game that is rather interesting. Like, you create your own character, there's like light customization, everything like that. And then you jump into this world where you collect this gauntlet, or well, this gauntlet sort of chooses you. And then you go about figuring out what's happening in this world, what has caused this situation, what is happening. It's not a terribly long game, though. I think most people will finish it in probably 10 or less hours. With my particular save, you can see I'm at like 540, but honestly, like, I idled for like 50 minutes at the beginning because I had to do something. Like, I was literally sitting in the camp idling. And then also I've been doing some extra little tests on things. But, you know, it's still decently long in regards to the gameplay. And I think most people are probably, like, I just kind of went and did the main story stuff. Like, there are quite a few side quests and world activities and things you can do, because it is an open world game. Another really neat element of this game is the fact that you can play it cooperatively. So you can play with two players together exploring this open world, which I think is pretty cool. It's kind of an interesting way to go about it. And I think kind of a fun sort of way to experience this game is playing together. Definitely. But you can have a fine time by yourself. That's totally cool. There are different difficulty options if you need something a little bit easier, something a little bit harder. For me, the most grueling part of this was just like, it kind of gets really overwhelming when you're fighting a big boss, and then there's all these side things kind of like shooting at you constantly. It gets a little annoying. And there's also a really bad element of repetition in this game. So I always do believe that these kind of like smaller AA projects are very, very important in the industry so that we actually have a variety of content. And I think this one, gameplay-wise, is really cool, and I'd love to see this actually fleshed out with a sequel. Like, there is a full narrative here, there's a full story. It's a very kind of cool, destroyed world filled with, like, basically the, like, slave class. Like, you are unnamed, you are unworthy of having a name, and then there's, like, this higher tier that basically runs things, and, you know, they're named, and, you know, there's all these elements of, like, this big god, and there's, like, a lot going on in this world, and it does look really quite cool. Like, I actually do like the environment and stuff like that. It is visually, I think, pretty impressive and actually punching above its weight, but just gameplay-wise, it's really, really quite repetitive. Like, exploring the open world is really, really cool. The quests and stuff, not so much. So you've got, like, a gauntlet, as you can see. Like, this gauntlet is the way of power, and there's a photo mode in case you didn't see the photo mode. But you got the gauntlet, and the gauntlet is your ability. It's, you know, it's what powers you. That is so terrifying as a sound. But, you know, your power mode, it's very important to what your character is. Oh, and there's like this sort of like tracking sort of thing. But anyways, yeah, and then the gauntlet kind of reveals itself and you improve the gauntlet. So you improve the gauntlet by collecting these shards. Sorry, I'm having a hard time getting up high enough to actually... Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do, is actually use this to create staircases, and then I can... Yeah, okay, I got it now. So anyways, yeah, you collect like 3 shards. And when you've collected these 3 shards, you can upgrade your gauntlet. So essentially the game breaks down to go to these areas, do like a quick little puzzle or battle, collect a shard, go to another area, do this again, and then you go and you fight like a big boss. And then there's a cinematic, and you go and kind of do it again. There is a little bit more depth to it than that, but like really that's sort of what it felt like you were doing. Because I think you do the gauntlet shards 4 or 5 times throughout this. So it is like... Wow, I keep messing up on that so badly. So it is like a big part of it. Now there is lots of other open world activities as well that you can do. Like it's just, again, it's very much like a AA game. It's not like one of those ridiculously over-bloated open worlds. Like it's... Jeez. It's one of the ones where it feels like you can finish things. Sorry, I am really not hitting this well. So you actually feel like you can finish all the content in this. Like, it'll take a bit more time, and, you know, I think it'll probably double that, like, 10-hour sort of playtime prediction that I kind of have for most people. But, like, yeah. And then when you're in the world, you can also find things that will upgrade your armor to make things easier and upgrade your abilities. Because you've got this cool gauntlet, and this gauntlet has cool things that you can do with it. So you've got these essence stones, and you can fuse and make other essence stones that will grant you other abilities. And you can see how these essence stones kind of fit into these different tiers. So you use these abilities in order to battle your various foes and to get extra bonuses, like a big hammer thing, and then you can upgrade these essence stones further. And you can have different presets, and there's different types of weapons that you can have, and there's these idols that further improve you as well. And then you got different types of armor, and then you can upgrade your armor at these anvils, which act as like fast travel points. So you can see the anvils here. They will allow you to go from like place to place. But this is the main open world that you go to. There's like 4 areas in this game. So that's a big spot, and then this is the first area you go to. Like, they're decently large, but like, as I said, it's very much like a AA game. Those are all the maps. So like, they're pretty big in scale, and there is stuff to do in them, and there are like quests and people to meet, but it's just not insanely large. And I think for some people that actually might be a little refreshing, that this game isn't like ridiculously long and takes forever. But I just want you to really get an idea of the amount of content that is present in this game, just so that you know what you're getting for this experience. So I did like it. Like, I did find this kind of interesting. And it does have like this sort of Monster Hunter-esque kind of style to it in terms of like targeting. So I'm sure we're gonna run into it. These things are annoying because they like suicide bomb you afterwards. But like there's these bigger monsters you fight. Not these things really aren't it. This one has like a two-part kind of thing going on with it. But like there's these really big monstrous crab type things. And well, not just crab type things. I mean I'm not really fully scaling and selling this. But there's like these big monsters, let's put it that way. And they have different parts of them. They might have 6 parts, a bigger boss might have like 10 parts. And you'll see like we just damaged its head. So to kill this thing we have to damage both parts. So it's a system that kind of gets you like moving around. Like most of the combat you're flying in the air. Some of the enemies you can just kind of get behind them and just kind of wail on them as long as you're keeping your aerial attacks going. Don't worry, enemies can be really, really annoying in this. It's not like an easygoing time. Most battles, though, were just kind of like overwhelming, if that makes sense, is where the difficulty came, was the overwhelmingness of the battles, as opposed to like anything too crazy. But again, you can adjust difficulties if you need to, if you want to make it easier going, you know, whatever, you do you, right? At the end of the day, I don't really care. Just kind of explaining everything in this. So, yeah, that's kind of a neat aspect of it, is it's Monster Hunter-like, but you're not really seeing the monster doesn't get like weaker or anything, so it's a little like silly and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I think this is a good example of it, because you can see there's like different pinpointed spots. Well, that one's still pretty small. There's larger creatures out here in the wilderness. Let's put it that way. There's larger things we can fight. But the other problem is that it like reuses the content like over and over again. So like you'll fight a boss and then you'll fight that same boss to complete main story objectives multiple times. Like there's this crab or scorpion thing which I was like, "Oh, cool," but then you fight it like 10 times over and you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm kind of tired of this thing." And there is a few like quite a few different designs, but it's like not only do you face them in like main story stuff, these big boss creatures, you also face them in the open world, so you'll like just come across them when you're doing stuff. So to me that kind of like takes away the special, like how special those creatures are, and it just really it lessens their impact because you see them so much, and it's also kind of like, wow, I'm just fighting the same thing over and over again. And it'll just kind of, you get to an area like story-wise, and it'll just be like, okay, I gotta fight the same boss over and over again. So I think at most, sometimes it created like a little bit of a boring angle of play where I'm kind of just like a little bored while playing it. Like the abilities and stuff are cool, but like you just kind of use them to parkour and then fly around enemies. Like it looks kind of neat, right? Like visually, and I think the gameplay elements are cool, and you get to customize your stuff in interesting ways. And like visually, I think it looks really, really quite nice. Again, for like a AA type project, really, really visually impressive. And you'll see like little bits of popping on shrubs, but like honestly, at the end of the day, it's actually really quite technically nice. So, like I think this one's actually a pretty cool little project. I like the concept of the world. I don't know if the lore is like super deep personally, but like, you know, there is a whole world lore here, and there's different characters and different, like, projects. Oh, and it's so annoying when he's like, oh, there's an anvil nearby, but it doesn't, like, really tell you where the anvil is, and you're kind of just sitting here being like, where's the anvil? And sometimes I feel like I've just straight up missed them, because I'm like, I don't know where they are. And the anvils are, like, your fast travel points. So we'll show that off, because the fast travel stuff's actually pretty quick in this one. We could... I'm gonna show off the main city. I kind of think that's a cool spot. Yeah, and then this character comes and talks to you for a bit. So that's another part of the game, is like the voice acting in this one is like... it's pretty weak. Like, sometimes it's okay, but your main character and that like Niall, the guy you talk to, like for most of the game, it's just... I definitely felt the voice acting could have been a lot better. Like, it's like some of the secondary characters I think do almost a better job, but it's just kind of like really, I don't know. Maybe the female characters get like a little bit of a stronger presence for like voice acting. I don't know, but I was just kind of like, oh, all right. There's also lots of like lore scrolls in the world that you can come across, and there's lots of like different characters you can like chat with. Like I wanted to show off like the city area here. And I think the city area is actually where you might notice like a couple little performance bumps. But like I said, honestly, like during gameplay, during combat, everything like that, performance was fine. I really, you know, as I was saying, there was a couple spots where I'm like, oh, it's dipping a little bit. But like for the most part, it's pretty rock solid. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna like bop this one down for that. I really genuinely think for the most part this game runs really well and it actually looks really nice. So, you know, bravo on that part. They nailed that spot. And it's like, you know, it's filled with detail too. Like there's lots of people going on and doing things. As I was saying, like we need more games like this that are smaller, nice, little settled experiences. That being said, I do again wish there was a bit more depth in regards to the way quests and stories are done, because it really did, to me, feel as though it had equated to go do these 3 things, you know, fight a monster, go do like a side quest. Like, it's... You get what I mean? Like, it just... The story structuring could have been a lot deeper, or it could have used, I think, the environment more. I felt like it could have been a little deeper. And that's where I'm kind of sitting here being like, I'd really like to see this explored out more in a sequel, because I think there is some really interesting gameplay mechanics and some intriguing puzzles and things that you can do for the Gauntlet. And it was almost like a little too repetitive in some degrees, because I'm like, you know, I feel like they could have taken the cool concepts they have here for gameplay a bit further than they did, and they definitely could have padded things out. So I will say, for like pacing and stuff, it was pretty short and sweet, but at the same time I was just kind of like bored of some things, and some stuff felt a little bit padded too. So I wasn't like blown away by this one, but it was okay. It was all right. Like, it was a solid, fine play. You know, I went out, I skipped along the sand, I smashed some things, I destroyed some stuff, and I had a decent time with it. I do also wish they would have spent more time digging into the lore without me having to look for lore books or listen to the lore stuff, but at the same time, it's kind of enough of a look at this like landscape. Like, you get the gist of the narrative and the world as the story plays out. So it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it also feels like some story stuff just kind of like really skips along quickly. And you can revisit areas afterwards to open up new areas, and not really new areas, but like, you know, kind of get new abilities, and not even new abilities. You get more stuff by going back after you've unlocked the ability to get more stuff. So that, I think, makes the most sense. I also want to mention the game has a really interesting element of basically combat. So combat has this really intriguing sort of momentum-based system to it that I found quite fascinating. So as you're fighting, the blue bar on the bottom corner of the screen, I'm hoping this loads up or kind of teleports really quick. We're going to like the first kind of big area you go to, because there is like an opening area too, but I don't think you really can revisit that. I don't believe, because that kind of sets the stage and lets you learn the abilities. So as soon as we get out of this place, I'm sure that'll pop up there. Blah. Or maybe we gotta fight something. But anyways, there's a blue bar, and the blue bar is your momentum system. So keeping that going will allow you to unleash abilities of your Essence Gauntlet in order to do quicker damage, do freezes. There's also a big focus on like parry, where you use like your hardened skin to kind of like, you know, if you time it right, you can like block and do like a block thing. So that's a big part of the experience too. But you're seeing that blue bar on the bottom left there, and that's how you create momentum for combat and for battling. And yeah, you know, I hope that kind of makes sense and explains the combat a bit more too. But a lot of the combat, fly around, use your attacks. There's a lot of room for customization in your essence system, and I think that's kind of intriguing. But like overall, I liked it. I did find that it was a bit repetitive, and I did find that it was really quite short. But I do like the world. I like the concepts here. I think the character and stuff is kind of a little original and neat. So I hope that they expand upon it further in a sequel if that does happen.